Hello, we are going to share the ordinary 31st Sunday, the readings of 31st Sunday. And the Gospel, the core of the Gospel will talk about you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment. And we will go further into this in the Gospel. This is the first commandment. The second commandment, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And when we explain this, we will go further and deeper into this. The first reading is from the book of Deuteronomy. And Moses spoke to the people, saying, fear the Lord your God and keep throughout the days of your lives all his statutes and commandments, which I enjoin on you, and thus have long life. Hear then, Israel, and be careful to observe them, that you may grow and prosper the more. So this was Moses speaking to the people at that time. And in keeping the promise in keeping with the promise of the Lord, the God of your fathers, to give you a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Therefore, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Take to heart these words, which I enjoin on you today. This was Moses speaking to the people, and he already talked about the loving God above all. And so here he was speaking to the people of Israel. And now we come to the second reading from the book of Hebrews. Brothers and sisters, the Levitical priests were many because they were prevented by death from remaining in office. That means when they die, someone else has to take their place. But Jesus, because he remains forever, Jesus is different. He remains forever. Jesus has a priesthood that does not pass away. Therefore, he is always able to save those who approach God through him, since he lives forever, to make intercession for them. It was fitting that we should have such a high priest, holy, innocent, undefiled, separated from sinners, higher than the heavens. He has no need, as did the high priest, to offer sacrifice day after day, first for his own sins and then for those of the people. He did that once for all when he offered himself. For the law appoints men subject to weakness to be high priests, but the word of the oath, which was taken after the law, appoints a son, Jesus, who has been made perfect forever. So Jesus would be alive forever. And so it was fitting that we should have such a priest, Jesus as such a priest. But the high priest, the ordinary high priest, they have their own sin, and then there's a sacrifice for their own sins, and then for those of the people. But Jesus, once for all, did it once for all when he offered himself. For the law appoints men subject to weakness to be high priests, but the word of the oath, which was taken after the law, appoints a son who has been made perfect forever. So Jesus remains the high priest forever. And now we come to the Gospel of Mark. One of the scribes came to Jesus and asked him, "Which is the first of all commandments?" Jesus replied, "The first is this, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is Lord alone. The Lord our God is Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." So here, this is the core of love, of basic love. But we can go into this further and apply it further. So we will also look at it further later on. The scribe said to him, "Well said, teacher, you are right in saying he is one and there is no other than he, and to love him with all your heart, with all your understanding, with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is worth more than burnt offerings and sacrifice." That means burnt offerings and sacrifice without love is not enough. It must also, love is the basic thing. And the love must be love of God above all, and to love your neighbor as yourself. But we can go further into this. So here we talk about love of God, love of neighbor and yourself. And to love the Lord, now here we have the heart, which means that God is loving us and has loved us first. So when we love God, we love the Lord our God, it is a mutual love. It becomes a mutual love. That means God loving us and we loving God. So a mutual love between us and God, between God and us. To love the Lord our God with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind, and all our strength. May this mutual love, the mutual love that I just explained, may this mutual love with God help us to learn to love ourselves and our neighbor. So here I would link loving ourselves, loving our neighbor as ourselves, must be linked up with the love of God. God loving us and we loving God. And then link this to learn how to love ourselves and how to love our neighbor. So may this mutual love with God help us to learn to love ourselves and our neighbor. But we can go further into this, further and broader into this. That means moving, learning to love ourselves and our neighbor, and to love all humans. And then moving on to loving the earth. We must learn that to love God above all, to love ourselves, learn to love ourselves and our neighbor, and to love all humans, and to love the earth. And loving the earth would mean the earth is God's creation as a whole. So loving God's creation. And when we love God's creation as a whole, we would learn how to value and cherish its biodiversity. So we can bring this love broader into the whole earth, into the whole creation, and into its biodiversity. This is very important. Hope you will understand this and learn to look at the whole creation and the biodiversity, which is very, very important now, especially now in the 21st century. So when valuing and cherishing its biodiversity, and endeavoring to reverse our ecological crisis. Now, biodiversity also includes diversity of many types of trees and forests. So here we must consider trees and forests. It is very important part of our lives and essential for ecosystem and our livelihood. But more than 1 in 3 tree species, which is 1 in 3 species that they have studied, would be over 16,000 tree species, and they studied 47,000 species. Out of these 47 species, at least 1/3 are in danger of extinction, and 1/3 of this would be 16,000. So 16,000 tree species are at risk of extinction all over the world. That means in 192 countries. And this might not include some places, but it's basically nearly all over the world. So the studied species, 47,000 species, over 16,000 are in danger of extinction. We must really look at this very seriously. More than double this 16,000 tree species would be more than double the number of all threatened birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians combined together. So many of these species have become extinct or in the danger of becoming extinct. And this study was made by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And they think there might be about 58,000 species in the world, but they only studied 47,000 and found 16,000 in danger of extinction. Now, we must work for forest protection and restoration because involves our livelihood, involves the whole world. So we must, our existence and our livelihood. So we must be serious about it and must work for forest protection and restoration. That means planting trees and protecting the forest and helping forests to recover, restoration. So the love of God, love of humans would come to love of the earth, love of the different biodiversity, and also look at the risk we are at and do something about it. We must understand this and do something. Remember this. If you still do not understand, try to get to know more and to work more, work harder for our own sake and for the sake of biodiversity, for the sake of the earth. Okay? God bless.